All About Relationships is an engaging, lighthearted, and practical show designed to help people improve their relationships in meaningful ways. Hosted by Dr. Don Allen, a certified Gottman therapist, as well as an advanced trainer for the Institute. He is also certified in emotion-focused therapy. With over 40 years of experience in the field of psychotherapy, Dr. Allen is here to provide expert guidance on strengthening marriages, parent-child relationships, friendships, and more. Through insightful discussions, audience call-ins, and guest experts, viewers receive real-world strategies to enhance intimacy, communication, and overall relationship satisfaction. So now, please welcome the host of All About Relationships, Dr. Don Allen.
And hello, and we're back live. This is all about relationships, working towards ideal marriage and loving relationships. This is episode 8 in our second season. And I have a real treat for all of us today. We are going to be talking with a person who just wrote a book and is going to tell us a lot about it. This is Dr. Bill Bumberry, and his book is called Healing the Trauma of Infidelity. So we're going to talk about that. So the first thing I always start off with is, what have we done for our relationships today? Well, good news is we're doing this. And I always encourage you, watch me live, but go back home with your person and sit down and watch the show where you can stop it and talk about the content of what we're showing you. So that's what we're doing today. This is one of the things I like to do is kind of think of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Usually I start with the good, but today with this book and our special guest, we're going to talk about an ugly topic. We're going to talk about healing the trauma of infidelity, which is Bill's new book. So one of the things I did was when I read the book, I wanted to kind of give you this because it really gives you an idea of how Bill has an excellent writing style. But I just want to talk a little bit about how he words that at the very beginning. So in his introduction, he puts your darkest night. Betrayal is our greatest fear, our darkest night, right? So now, if that's happening, it's arrived at your door and entered your life. Not invited, not deserved, but it's here. Your partner has crossed a line into infidelity and is involved with another person. You no longer have the option of avoiding this fear, and you can't deny it. You can't go back in time and change the course of history. It's happened. Perhaps you worry it's still happening. How can you know for sure, right? You're devastated. You are angry and scared, and it's difficult to think clearly. For you, it's hard to see a way through the turmoil, and you're not sure there's a path to save your relationship, or even if you want to. So obviously, we don't want to have this kind of concern. Maybe you don't, but you know somebody dear to you that is experiencing this or has experienced it. Okay. Well, today, Dr. William Bumberry is going to be joining us with his brand new book. Bill is a nationally recognized psychologist. He's a master trainer with the Gottman Institute and an author of this groundbreaking new book called Healing the Trauma of Infidelity: How to Rebuild Trust, Rekindle Attachment, and Rediscover Love, Commitment, and Intimacy. For decades, Bill, Dr. Bumberry, has guided couples through their most painful crises and helped them to transform despair into connection. In his thriving St. Louis practice, he empowers his patients to heal wounds, rebuild trust, and restore closeness. Beyond the therapy room, Bill is also a dynamic public speaker and trainer. He's known for inspiring clinicians to master the Gottman method. He also captivates audiences with practical research-based strategy to strengthen marriage and relationships. One of the things I particularly like about the book is he does, on occasion, link all of what he's talking about to science, which is really wonderful. So his book is called Healing the Trauma of Infidelity. But it doesn't just talk about surviving betrayal. It also gives couples a roadmap for reclaiming intimacy and building a stronger, more secure bond in their relationship than ever before. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. William Bumberry, and he's going to talk to us about his book. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, Don. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, this is fun. I always enjoy talking to you. I know I've seen you do public speaking many times, and it's always a pleasure. So thank you for coming on and really bringing your book, folks. One of the things that we do in this show is we always try to look as a community, and this kind of information is wonderful for us to have. And I'm old enough to remember a time when we didn't have these kind of ways to help couples. So, Bill, just thank you so much. And one of the things I guess I'll just kind of do is ask you some questions, and you can give us your expertise and also give us wisdom from your book. How about that?
That sounds right. Thanks,
All
Don.
right. You bet. Right. Okay. Well, my first question is, tell us a little bit about your decision to write the book, Healing the Trauma of Infidelity. So, how did you arrive at doing that?
Well, so when I really think about it, this book has been written in my head for the last 20 years.
Mhm.
I've been working with couples for 30 years pretty exclusively, seen many cases of different kinds of betrayal, but the infidelity of either emotional and or physical betrayal seems to be right up at the top of the list of pain that couples experience. And yet there are couples who find a way through it. They find a way to, not easily, not instantly, not simply, but to find, not only to stay together, but to find a deeper connection than they perhaps had even at one time. So a couple of years ago, I had the privilege of presenting this material at a trauma conference in Rome, and a book company noticed the presentation, New Harbinger publishers, and they called me and asked about writing a book, not for therapists so much or professionals, but for you, for the public. And in particular, they asked me to write a book that was focused to the hurt partner in these kind of betrayal and infidelity situations.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm so glad that they were able to notice your work and pick it up. And I'm glad they encouraged you to write this. As a clinician myself, we see this, often actually in our office. We hate to, but it's so nice to have this kind of work. And in reading the book, I know it's going to enhance my practice and my ability to help people. One question I have for you is, how prevalent is infidelity in the United States and around the world?
So over the years, there have been a lot of guesstimates. There have been a lot of studies about how much infidelity affects people's lives. And the quality of the studies has varied from time to time. But generally speaking, there's a consensus that somewhere, and this is a kind of a broad range, between 20 and 40% of couples have infidelity enter their life, enter their relationship. It may be physical infidelity, it may be emotional, but regardless of how many there really are around the globe, what's really relevant is what's happening to you and
Mhm.
how it's impacting your life, not just you as a person and you as a couple, but perhaps you as a family, your kids, your extended family, how it affects your ability to function in your career. It just is the kind of moment and the kind of experience that changes everything.
Yeah, and I really like how you underscore this idea of really bringing it to our audience. And like I said, we just hope and pray these things don't visit us. And for the audience, when he says, "I'm concerned about you," but he's also letting you know that this is fairly prevalent in the world. So it's not just one person rarely, but this is a common problem in the world. And we care about you, and we care about making this better for you. So thanks, Bill. That's nice. Um, Next question I have is, I notice that your book begins by focusing on the partner on the business end of the infidelity, but it also talks about what you call the involved partner, the person who's having the affair. So one of the things that I like about your book is it talks about helping couples finding a way back to a healthy relationship. Can you talk a little bit more about that for our audience?
Yeah, so let me begin with just
Mhm.
an effort to put a really simple explanation or definition of infidelity out there. And what I would ask you to think about is an infidelity is a situation where there's a violation or a betrayal of an agreement or a contract or an understanding you have. It might not be explicit, like Nobody has literally said you can't do this, but you know that it's outside the limits. So infidelity then is defined as a betrayal of that understanding, and then it's kept secret. Your partner hides it from you, they keep it internal. And so that dynamic leaves you, the hurt partner, on the outside as your partner's having a different life, a secret life. And so that, with that definition, then if you think about the role of the hurt partner and the involved partner, the involved partner has some work to do right off the bat. The involved partner is the one who chose, and I'll use that word kind of purposely because they always had other options. Having an emotional or physical relationship with another person was not the only way to address any concerns you might have. So the involved partner has some work to do of trying to own what they did, to really own that they are the ones who turned away from the relationship, who betrayed something in their relationship. It didn't happen because you, the hurt partner, didn't pay attention to them or weren't a good enough partner, husband or wife. They still had other choices. So the involved partner needs to do a couple things. They need to own it, that they made a decision. They need to really kind of be able to be present to the pain that it caused their partner, and hopefully to see that there's some remorse there inside them, to find remorse inside them. And as you, the involved partner, feel badly for the impact it's had on your partner, and really maybe you feel badly because it's not the kind of person you want to be, then it opens these deeper feelings of compassion for your partner. You feel for them, you feel with them, and you really want to do what you can, anything you can, to make it better.
Yeah, and I really hear that, desire on the part of the involved person to want to find a way back and to recognize that mistake that they made and to show that remorse to their partner. So that's really helpful to know. And yeah, that answers my question really well. So thank you.
And that is the beginning, Don, that
Mhm.
what you said, the hurt partner or the involved partner wanting to find their way back, is true in many cases, but like any clinical situation, it's not true for everybody. Some partners have decided that they don't want an exclusive relationship, or they want to change the parameters.
Mhm.
Sometimes the hurt partner, as much as they feel devastated and as much as they feel scared and alone and angry, in some cases they're 100% sure from the get-go that they want this relationship to work, and in many other cases they're not so sure, or they're not so sure it's even possible. So sometimes there's a real fluctuation about, is there a path for us or not? And that's really what I try to address as we start the book, as we start the kind of the journey.
No, really good. And back to that, that ambivalence in the relationship. And this is folks at home, this is one of the reasons why I was really glad Bill came on the air, is because if people do want to find a way back, it's nice to know that there is a scientifically driven skill set to help. And I like how Bill right off the bat is giving us, how do we begin the process immediately of trying to find a way to rebuild that relationship house. We'll talk about that in the second segment. Let me look at my time. I think we have one more question I want to ask, but I'm going to wait till after the break. So why don't we go ahead and do that now? Because this would be a good stopping spot, and we will catch you back in a moment. Don't go away. This is really good material.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
All right, we're back, and I'm excited to continue with our show today. Today we have Dr. William Bumberry talking about his new book, Healing the Trauma of Infidelity. So once again, Bill, thank you for coming in and sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us. And just want to continue on these questions because I love your answers, and I'm enjoying learning about this along with my audience. So I guess the next question I have is, can you speak about the ambivalence couples often have in the beginning of the crisis? But then what is the role of forgiveness? And I guess more to the point, what is love and how does love not only come back to the relationship, but how can people begin to mend that so that they can have a better sound relationship house?
Yeah, so we have a whole show in that two sentences you just said. So let me just
Right.
make a comment about the initial ambivalence, though,
Yeah.
because this isn't true for everyone, but for many people, even though we know that infidelity, betrayal surrounds us, it's in the media. When it happens, and like there was a Coldplay concert where a couple got caught on
I
camera that
remember. Yeah.
went viral and went.
Mhm.
Even though it surrounds us, it's still often the kind of thing that we internally think, yes, infidelity is real, but it doesn't happen to people like us. It happens to
Mhm.
other people. And when it
Mhm.
knocks on your door, when it enters your home, it's still a shock, even though we know it's out there. And so when you think about that, there's a disorientation. You're a trauma expert, Don. There's a trauma often about
Mhm.
the whole stability of your life, of what you've built your life around and who you created this life with, is now shattered. It's up in the air. It's hard to know what the path is. And so the idea of this book is try to define, not necessarily to answer the question right away, are you going to stay together or not? But how do you get to that place? How do you decide whether
Mhm.
you have a future or not? And it's
Sure.
not something you can you can decide that I want it to work, or you can decide I'll never put myself in that position again. But the actual process of building the relationship takes place over time. And a big part of that is to come to kind of grips with what sounds like a very simple, and it is to some people, but in clinical practice, I think it's a complex, multifaceted phenomena. And that is what you ask about, Don, forgiveness. So what I mentioned in the book, and here's a couple of just questions to have you think about what forgiveness is.
Mhm.
And here's one premise. Forgiveness is a decision that you make in the moment, but it's also a process that unfolds over time. The decision to
Mhm.
forgive is, we all know there's plenty of research that says forgiveness rather than carrying and harboring resentment is good for you as a human being. It's not good for you to carry around bitterness and resentment inside you. And it's
Mhm.
also good for the relationship in your family. But forgiveness isn't something that you just decide to forgive on a Tuesday and it stays with you the rest of your life. It comes and goes at times. It happens in a moment, but then it unfolds over a lifetime. When there's an event like a betrayal or an infidelity, you will, in the course of your life, you've been sensitized now to notice it in the news, to notice it in the neighborhood, to notice it in your extended family, and you are going to have a more sensitive filter to noticing betrayal and hearing about it. And when you hear about it, a day, a week, a decade later, it still may be triggering to you. It still might
Mhm.
bring back emotional pain that you experienced at one time. So while we believe that forgiveness happens in a moment, to understand that it unfolds and it happens over and over again, it's something given. You give the gift, the grace of forgiveness to your partner, But here's the important thing we sometimes miss. It's something the involved partner also has to earn. They have a strong role, or you, if you're the involved partner, you have a role in making this forgiveness not a concept, not an idea, but an actual lived life where your partner eventually, by not only forgiving you, but beginning to believe you and trust you, you can have this kind of close, intimate relationship again. And the last point here about forgiveness, it's a gift that you give yourself as well as the gift you give your partner. So don't be too hard on yourself about forgiveness. If you find you want to forgive, but you don't know if you can, or on Tuesday you feel you have forgiven your partner, but by Thursday you're back into the mindset that says, I don't see a path forward, to understand that that's typical. It's not a thing to berate yourself about, and give yourself some credit and a break. It takes time.
No, that's really, really helpful. And you were mentioning a little bit too about the concept of love and what is love. Do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
I do. And love is kind of love is, let me find another little quote here about love, because love forever has been the realm of poets and philosophers. And now it's actually moving into the realm of science and neuroscience. So here's a couple of things to ponder just about the idea of love. Is love an emotion? Is it a feeling? Or is it an action, a behavior? Is it a feeling? Or is it a decision? Is love fleeting? Does it come and go? Or is it actually something that stays within you, even though it doesn't stay? Maybe the file's not always open for you. Is it passion and intensity? Or is it commitment and consistency? Is it something you fall into? Does love just happen? Or is it something that you build over a lifetime? And as a couples therapy person, there's the idea that while early in a relationship, love feels compelling. The in-love experience, the oxytocin fortified experience of in love is real, and it's palpable. But it also develops and grows and emerges over the course of a lifetime. The love at the first month of a relationship is different than the love after 20 years of being together. Can you lose love? Can it be rekindled? And is love just simply something there, or is it something you build and create? There's a French philosopher named Alain Badiou who talks about relationships as at the beginning, they're kind of, you don't find your soulmate. He argues you find a person in kind of a chance relationship, and then based on the path you create together and the relationship you build together over a lifetime, at the end of the day, if you built the path well and walked the path with integrity and love, it feels like it was always destiny. It feels like a soulmate, but it didn't really start that way. You in essence created your soulmate.
So no, that's really good. I know for me, I've always liked from Scott Peck's book, The Road Less Traveled. You know, love is a decision more than it is a feeling to extend yourself for the purpose of nurturing another spiritually and emotionally. So, you know,
Yes.
that decision, you know, that you're talking about, I think is really, really important. And I think you're right. I mean, biochemistry is involved. The one thing I like about the relationship house, I'm going to ask you a question about that in a minute. But what I like about that is that constant vigilance to looking at all the facets of the relationship house and making sure that those happen. I often on my show talk about kind of weeding the garden each week. Make sure that you get the things out of there that
Yeah, for
that
sure.
would be a threat for it. So no, I really like your answer. That's helpful. I'm sure at home people are really, really listening to that and appreciating it. I just asked my engineer to put up that relationship house. I was suggesting in the third segment, but since we are here, this is a
Yeah.
good time to put it. You know, one question I'll have to you, just, you know, when you look at the sound relationship house, and this is one of the reasons I put it up because I refer to it often on my show. When you have an infidelity, how does that affect the sound relationship house? Can you give a little bit of information on that?
Sure, Don. And let me try to keep it not too scientific or not too complicated, but
Perfect.
this
Yeah.
model of relationships is kind of a summarization of decades of research from the Gottman Institute. Originally all of it was created and developed by Dr. John Gottman, and over time, his partner, Dr. Julie Gottman, has also been a major contributor to this. But this is the conceptualization of what healthy relationships look like. What I would argue is that thing in the middle called the positive perspective is a way of thinking, what atmosphere do you live in? Is your relationship one that's full of positivity and sunshine, or is it one full of criticism and darkness? So we live relationships either with we're giving the benefit of the doubt to our partner, or we don't do that so much. The bottom parts of this map, the love maps, fondness and admiration, and turning towards, are all what we call friendship. They're the ways that we bond and connect and engage with each other. That's a great way to build this positivity. Managing conflict above that is also ironically important because everybody fights, everybody has conflict. And what's important to know is doing conflict in a healthy way, a respectful, involved, engaged way, really also creates safety and positivity in a relationship. On top, there are a couple of things about life dreams and shared meaning. When you meet a new person and you don't know them, you develop a file for them. That's what we call love maps at the bottom. That file often touches on things like hopes and dreams and what we imagine our life will be like if it's shared with that person. So that brings us to the top of the sound relationship house. For our purposes today about betrayal, the two walls of trust and commitment are essential. And there's nowhere to go without them. They hold the house up. And by trust, I'm really not talking about naive trust. I'm talking about built or earned or lived trust. Trust is that it's more than a feeling. It's that internal knowledge that I know you've got my back. When it comes down to it, you're here for me and you've got my back. And commitment then isn't just a feeling either. It's a decision based on the idea that there's a specialness in you and between us that I am choosing. I not only chose it when we committed to each other or got married, but I choose you and I choose us, our relationship, every day. Needless to say, as soon as we start to talk about infidelity, then it kicks out those two walls of trust and commitment. And that means in many cases, the whole house needs to be rebuilt from the bottom up. Let me throw one other thing in that relates. So betrayal, since it devastates trust and commitment, betrayal is thought, at least the way I would think about it, it's an act or a moment or a period of self-centeredness where one partner acts in a way that they believe is in their best interest, and they do it in almost a win-lose mentality. It may be unconscious. They may not be thinking about it, but they are seeking their own wants, wishes, and needs, perhaps at the cost of their partners, even at the cost of their partners. So the fact that this would devastate their partner doesn't deter them from moving in that direction. And the other side of the coin for betrayal is a word called loyalty. Loyalty relates to trust and it relates to commitment. But let me just throw one idea out about loyalty. Loyalty isn't, again, just a feeling. Loyalty is an action. When you see your partner in duress, when they're being criticized at a family gathering and somebody's being hard on them, that you, as their partner, you don't just see them and hope it goes away. You activate and you come to their aid and you come to their side and help them. You protect them. So loyalty is an action-oriented piece of sustainable relationships, and it's essential after there's been a betrayal like an infidelity.
Yeah. I just to add to that, when you looked at the relationship house and you saw the fondness, admiration, not only does that have within it loyalty, right, but it also has respect. And, part of what you're noticing is that respect, not only do you have for your partner, but you show it in a way that is also with admiration and joy. So no, I think that's really good. Folks at home too, we're talking about a specialized issue of infidelity, but you notice how really quickly we go back to the foundations of the relationship house and a lot of what I've talked about on prior shows to really make sure that we have an optimal relationship house that we maintain over time. Bill, let's take a break again. We're going to go to the bottom of the hour, and then we're going to come back, and I'll ask you some more questions. So thanks for the good information.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
All right, and we're back, and we're going to continue to talk to Bill Bumberry. And Bill's going to talk more about his new book called Healing the Trauma of Infidelity. I have it right here, and you can get this on Amazon. We'll continue from time to time to put up his credentials if you'd like to talk to Bill directly. But like I said, we have this wonderful book here, and Bill, I got to tell you, one of the reasons I like about this book, and I work all the time with this, and I teach what Gottman says to clinicians about how we can help people get through infidelity and stuff. But I like your book because it's an easy read, it's understandable, and it really gets to the heart of what's going on, and being scientific, but not being like a college textbook. So I really encourage people to get this book and read through it. Even if it's not happening with you, you may know somebody you love that has this. And again, it's a way through a terrible time. So I'm glad we have this, and I really appreciate your writing the book. Okay.
Well, Don, and one other thing,
Yeah.
Don, when you look at this book, even though it's geared for the kind of intensity of this extreme form of betrayal, most of the ideas, the therapy ideas, the healing ideas that are expressed here also apply to less dramatic moments of pain and difficulty that we all have in our relationship from time to time.
Yeah. And another thing, you talk about, post-traumatic stress of these, but, over time, it can really develop into post-traumatic stress disorder. And, what I've noticed in my travels is that, people can get over these things and do really well, but little things, like you said, trigger, past experiences to where all of a sudden, even though they're doing really well, it can feel like it's right back in the room sometime. So, that can be a difficulty with folks that, and we do have abilities to help even in those situations. So very good. Well, one thing I guess I do want to talk about, kind of getting more towards, not only getting back to solving these problems, but, one of the things that I would ask you is, are there predictable ways that create a slide for some couples where they start kind of going down a path or a road where the climate whereby infidelity might happen becomes greater? I mean, anything about that you want to talk about?
For sure, Don. There are a lot. There are a lot of reasons people get involved in affairs or infidelity. They're not all relationship based. Some of them are based on our individual backgrounds, the families we grew up in, our relationship history before we found our partner. Some of them are embedded in the way we think about what a man is or what a man does, or what a woman is and what a woman does. That some of them are cultural, some of them are gender based.
Mhm.
But in addition to those things, there are some pretty clear dynamics that happen within a relationship that seem to help to move people in the direction, kind of like a downhill slide towards betrayal.
Mhm.
But before we get into that, let me just say that
Mhm.
it's a common issue, or especially early when a betrayal is discovered, especially or
Mhm.
disclosed, but especially if it's discovered, for the person who's the involved partner to deny it, to not want to own it, or in even more in a more painful way, they blame it on their partner. I wouldn't have found myself in this position. I never would have gone after him
Wow.
or her if it weren't for you. If you
Mhm.
were paying more attention to me, if you weren't so negative, if you were more sexual, I could have had all my needs met at home with you. And so you actually caused this infidelity. And what I
Mhm.
would like to say as clearly as I can, that
Mhm.
despite the involved partner's logic, and they may really believe this to some extent, they always had other choices. They always could have come to
Mhm.
you and tried to say, I'm lonely, I'm not happy, this relationship is not fulfilling my needs. We need to work on this. And the courage to do that rather than heading for another relationship is important. But sometimes people start this slide
Mhm.
without really intentionally planning on it and beginning it. And what I would ask you to pay attention to is something that we all do from time to time, which is no matter how close we are in our relationship, things happen. We get busy. The kids need our time. Our careers are demanding. We drift. We
Yes.
drift away from closeness. We drift away from moments of dedicating time to each other. Even here's a bit of science. There was a famous study done at the UCLA Sloan Center years ago,
Okay.
where they looked at dual career millennial couples who had kids. And here's just a couple findings they had. They
Mhm.
found that these couples, during the course of a week, a full 7-day week, they spent an average of 35 minutes a week talking to each other. That's 5 minutes a day. When I first read this, it shocked me. But I can't tell you how many couples I
Mhm.
have when I tell them this exact data that I just told you, they say, yeah, that's about right.
Mhm.
And the other thing they found is in the evening, they only spent 10% of their time even in the same room. So,
Mhm.
they're involved with the kids, they're involved with work, they're involved with chores, they're involved with video games and social media. So, so the drift is a ubiquitous common thing that all happens. And then as we drift, and as we get outside the range of feeling close, we also then begin to turn away from our partner. And when our
Mhm.
partner does reach for us, rather than reaching back, we turn away from them. So that's the beginning of the slide, is drifting, which is common, but then turning away and not being responsive to our partner's reaching for us, or we call it bids. When a partner reaches for connection, do we respond in a positive way or do we turn away from them?
Well,
Does that
it's
fit with
such
your?
a. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, Don, how does that fit with your experience?
Oh, absolutely. And just to underscore, from some of our past episodes, I have a whole show on drift. And did you notice Bill was talking about something that I talked about earlier too? When he was talking about that blame game. Well, if you would do this, if you would do that. Remember in a past show, one of the things John and Julie really teach us is the four horsemen of the apocalypse. What breaks up relationships? Which is criticism, defensiveness, contempt, which is talking about your partner as being defective, and then stonewalling, just ignoring our partner, turning away and not making those bids. So if you notice, when Bill's talking about this stuff, what slides into drift, what makes it difficult, Bill, I really agree with you. You're really noticing those kind of things begin to help us go down that elevator into potential crisis.
For sure. And then when you find yourself in that kind of place, you're no longer close like this. And guess what? Your needs, neither of your needs for connection are really being met so well. You may be busy, you may have a satisfying life in many ways, but your intimacy bond with your partner, emotionally and physically, is often interrupted or damaged. Then here's the pernicious shift that happens. And a brilliant Dutch researcher named Carol Rusbolt came up with this. And what she discovered is a telltale sign that you're beginning to head towards a potential betrayal is in your head. Quietly in the recesses of your mind, you begin to make negative comparisons about your partner. You begin to think, oh, that our next door neighbor, Susie, she laughs at my jokes much more than our partner. Or a woman at work is much nicer to me. Or the man who smiled at me at Starbucks is so gentlemanly and so kind. I wish my partner was like that. Or we might even say, that actor or actress we just saw a movie about, that's who I'm meant for. And you begin internally to compare your partner with some real or imagined other person. And as you let that stay in your head and you don't approach your partner, it takes root and it grows and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the things, Don, you just mentioned, the four horsemen, conversations turn into fights, or people, rather than being able to stay regulated, they get flooded. They get physiologically triggered into fight or flight. And as that happens more and more and more, the one other point I would like to make, although there are many more that towards that slide to infidelity, is that we begin now a conscious and pervasive sense of avoidance. We avoid conflict. We don't want to get into those four horsemen upset fights, so we just avoid conflict with them. And perhaps in the wake of betrayal, more importantly, we avoid self-disclosure. We stop letting our partner in on what's happening in our mind, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and we shut them out as we keep our self hidden from them. And once that happens, the drift becomes more than drift. It becomes a real movement away from your partner. And avoidance, in essence, blocks the entry again. You can't come back to a connection as long as you're doing avoidance as a primary defense mechanism.
Yeah, and then it becomes a competition for which one is going to tell the other one why they're wrong, potentially. The other thing I want to say, and just to kind of tie this back to the beginning of our show today, he talks about this idea of how we drift away from it. But again, there are reasons why that can happen, but there's still no excuses. Because like he started out, there are lots of opportunities to choose towards, bidding towards. So when something is bad as infidelity happens, we need to start with this idea of healing and taking responsibility, and really tending to the hurt partner, and to get to a point where we really can do an intervention that can work for them. Bill and I were talking just before the show, and we got going with these questions, and they're so good and they're so wonderful, and they really underscore his book. But during the break, I asked Bill, hey, could you come back and we can talk about the road to recovery from this a little bit more, so that we have that positive and that good? Because today we're really kind of setting the stage for what drift is and how these things can go into a crisis, but we still want to find a way out. So Bill, I'll talk to you. If you can come back in the next month or so, I will definitely let people know as they come to my show that we'll have you back, if you don't mind.
Don, that would be great, because the brilliance of the Gottman Institute's research on this particular topic is just so evident. It's powerful, it's compelling, and it really says, it doesn't say you need to stay in this relationship, but it says there's a process to follow. There's a path to walk that allows it to become more clear to you. Is this the relationship I want? And if the answer is yes, it gives you some invaluable tools to kind of create that path and then to live it as the future progresses.
And so many people that I know, it's not just a matter of, oh my gosh, this is a crisis, but they've built so much common memories, common history. There's been a lot of joy along the way, too. And the other thing is they have a tremendous responsibility, and they both agree a lot of times, hey, we've got kids and we want to keep a family together if we can. And, all of those things are considerations for people. But for those who want to find a way back, it's just really nice to know that we have science to help, we have qualified clinicians to help, and then we have a person like you who not only tells people how to do this in their practice, but can write a book and allow people to have hope and connection and a roadmap. So again, folks, if you ever had a situation like this, I strongly recommend the book. And you know what? You may not, but you may have somebody in your family or someone you love that's struggling with this. It's nice to be able to say, hey, here's a book that can begin to talk about this so that you have a road and find a way back. Why don't we go ahead and take a break here, Bill? When we come back, we'll give them something fun to do for the week, and we'll go from there. So let's break, and we'll be back for the last segment.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Well, Bill, we were just talking about how quick this goes, and what I want to do is put your picture up in your book and your information for anybody that would like to go out and get this book and read it a little bit more. You can go to www.billbumberryphd.com and see his website. And that book that you're noticing right there, you can get on Amazon and a lot of other outlets that you can do. But anybody who would like to contact Bill, absolutely. I'm sure he would love to get feedback from you. And like I said, let you know more about this topic. Same way, if folks are would liking him to do some public speaking appearances on this book, that's a good place to catch him. Well, Bill, one of the things I love to do at the end is I always say, we're really in this together. And something you had mentioned that I really want to underscore: there's so many things that pull relationships apart. A lot of the media, a lot of what you see, on TikTok, all these kind of things. I mean, if you're susceptible to drift, there's a lot of opportunities that you can find on the media that pull you away from your partner, not the least of which is just spending too much time on media. But what I'd like to do, and what I always tell people to do, is at the end of our show to go to their partner, watch this show again, stop the show and talk about what we're talking about on the show. But the other thing is, we'd like to give you something to do so everybody at home knows we're all going out and doing this. All right. So, Bill, what do you think we could give these folks to go home and build their relationship? You got any ideas?
Well, yeah, Don. So we chatted a little about this. If you remember that Sound Relationship House picture, at the bottom, there are 3 things that constitute friendship. And the middle one is called fondness and admiration. So fondness and admiration is the idea that just like when you were new in your relationship, when you met, when it was early, you saw things all over the place you loved it and cared about with your partner, things that not only made you kind of interested in them physically, but emotional qualities that they had that you valued and respected kind of led to the idea that a life with this person would be wonderful. The skies would be bluer, the birds would sing more beautifully. And so if I invite you to think back about this whole idea of fondness and admiration, and this is some of the early research they found, is the couples who we call the masters of relationships rather than the disasters on a regular basis, and they did this without being coached to do it, they noticed things. They did three things. They noticed things they cared about and valued about their partner. They commented on it. They communicated to them. They said something or they gave a hug. And not only did they communicate it, but they made sure that the way they communicated it was received, that the positive message they were sending actually landed and got absorbed by their partner. On a regular basis, they did this, perhaps every day. So I would invite you to the fun, to the challenge of paying attention to things that you love about your partner, that you care about, and thank them for it, or tell them an appreciation, and then make sure that they received it. And it's fine to say things like, I appreciate you took care of the kids, you put the kids to bed early, you put gas in my car, you did the grass, you cleaned this, you cleaned that, you made the phone call to my mother. All those things are nice acts that people do, and that's part of this. But a deeper part of it is to make a comment, to notice something about personality qualities about your partner, who your partner really is, and share with them moments that you saw kindness or creativity or adventuresomeness, to share with them some of the very qualities that brought you together, and let them know that you still see it and it means a lot to you.
Well, that sounds fun. So let's all go home and do that. Catch your partner doing it right. See if you could get that big smile from them that you noticed they were awesome and you really think so. Remember, the person that matters most to your person is you. So it coming from you means a ton. So very good. So if you want to contact me, I'll put that back up, and please give me comments one way or the other. Doesn't matter. Give me input about future shows, and love to hear from you. So we'll try to do that. Thanks, Bill. And Bill, again, his book, Healing the Trauma of Infidelity, we're going to have him on in the next couple of weeks. I will let you know as we meet on our Wednesday show. And the other thing I always say is safety first. This is a show that is educational. It's not psychotherapeutic. This isn't a therapy session. But hopefully this is news you can use. And for those of you who find that, again, they need a little bit more than just a TV show, there's a tremendous amount of clinicians out there in the world that are very qualified and can help. So that's always something that you might want to consider if you need a little bit more help. So take care. Bill, again, thank you so much. I can't wait to have you back on. And folks, remember, this is not a fair fight. We have to pull together and we have to be a community. So thank you for coming on and being part of my community. And we'll talk to you next week, 1 o'clock Eastern time, on all things and all about relationships. Take care.
While All About Relationships is educational and entertaining, it is not a substitute for therapy, counseling, or professional advice, but an informative space for learning and growth. So tune in each week for an engaging and reliable approach to your relationships, ensuring viewers with practical tools to create deeper connections in their daily lives. Whether tackling conflict resolution, emotional intimacy, or family dynamics, this show is your go-to resource for anyone looking to foster healthier, happier relationships in a supportive and lighthearted environment. Every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern.